Right. We have got a super duper table tonight with lots of different time zones. So we have got up in my left-hand corner the amazing Brice from Esoteric Atlanta. Hi, Brice. Second time I've been lucky enough to be on with Brice today. And then down in my left-hand corner, we've got Medyhne, who is in Australia, so it's Tuesday morning for you. And then also in Australia, we've got my dear friend David Cowan as well, but at different time zones. We've got 4 different time zones tonight, so it took some organizing. How are you doing, all of you?
Great.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It's very early for you. Is it 6 o'clock, David?
5.
5 o'clock. That is
Yeah,
dedication.
5 o'clock.
That is really dedication for you. So it's 9 o'clock at night for me, 5 o'clock in the afternoon for you.
4. It's I'm the best. I'm at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so I am great.
And then 8 o'clock in the morning for you, Medyhne?
Yes, yeah, which isn't too bad compared to Dave.
Okay, you win the award, Dave. You win the award, David. So
Yeah, what do I get? We got a box of donuts or something, or
you get to talk to us. What more?
What more could you want?
Perfect.
We were going to have a really just good general discussion between friends today, but one of the things that Medyhne was sent through a really good suggestion that I think is a really good place to start is about tapping into your inner warrior at the time like this. I just thought that was a lovely suggestion, Medyhne.
We all need it, I think, at the minute.
We do. What are some of your tips for that? Let's start with Medyhne.
Okay. Well, should I read that piece of amazing writing that just inspires that in us? Shall I do that first just to set the tone? Okay, so this is where I got this inspiration from. The more they lock down, the more my heart opens. The more they say you cannot, the more I say I am and I will. The more fear they bring, the more I will trust. The more they say trust us, the more I will trust my intuition and the divine. The darker they try to make it, the brighter my light shines. The more they try to divide, the more I will stay connected. The more rules they impose, the more sovereign I will be. The more they try to tame me, the wilder I get. The more they threaten, the fiercer my roar. The more they say bow to me, the stronger I stand. I bow only to love. I am a free bird. And that's a piece of writing by Rosanna DeVee. And I just love that because it just is the energy that's coming at us at the moment is this, an energy to suppress and control and so our reaction to that equal and opposite reaction is to stand stronger and to really empower ourselves and to claim for the first time, truly claim our sovereignty, our ability to stand as free spirits, free beings in a world that no longer aligns with a paradigm, an old paradigm that it's had its day, and now we're ready to just really step into a whole new template. So I think that the warrior for women and sort of like a divine feminine warrior too. You can think about the goddess Kali. She was very fierce, but she was very passionate and strong. And so, there's different types of the divine feminine warrior that we can step into depending on what we're resonating with. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
What about you, Brice? What does sort of tapping into your own inner warrior, what does that bring up for you?
Well, these last couple of months, or maybe this last 6 weeks, I've now shifted and realized when this whole thing started, I thought we were just going to have front row seats and eat popcorn and watch the show go down. I didn't realize we were actually the show. Nobody informed me that we were actually on the front line. And that this last 6 weeks, I've realized that. And my joke is, I don't even know how to boil an egg. How am I going to do this? So, but it, we've talked about that 0 point before, and I think part of being a warrior is dealing with handling the stress of the situation that you're in. And I know in a lot of the episodes I've done with other people, there's a Bible verse in the book of Esther that says, perhaps you were born for such a time as this. And I loved that poem, Medyhne, because it kind of gives that ownership of being allowed, being that permission to go, wait a minute, no, which is part of that sovereignty, which that sovereignty is the base of being that warrior. But when that stress comes, being able to find that 0 point again, to get back to your roots of who you are, so that you can stand in your own divine sovereignty, whether that's divine feminine or divine masculine, whatever that is. And there are different shades of that divine spectrum of where we're going. Kali is that dragon energy that is also associated with the Mother Mary. That I mean, what fiercer energy is there to stand there and watch your child, be killed in front of you, and then pick the body up and walk away with your head held high? Like, that's that dragon fierceness that comes through with Kali as well. So I think back to your question, Catherine, being that warrior, get back into your sovereignty, find that 0 point, and then realize that you're a badass, because perhaps you were born for such a time as this. And that's why they're doing everything to us, right? They're scared of us. That's why they do it. They're scared of us. Push back. Just don't consent.
So true. So true. What about you, David?
Yeah, I have to agree with Brice, what she first said about the movie and all that thing. I kind of discovered the 17th letter in 2020 for the first time. I didn't really know what it was about, and they kept saying that phrase, just sit, watch the movie or whatever, and enjoy the show. But it's become quite evident that we have to do it. Like, we are active participants in this thing, and the level of compliance that I'm seeing is really making me quite perturbed recently, because we had a muzzle mandate just before Christmas, and what it's really highlighted is the fact that, and we've known this for so long, like mass non-compliance, but so many people don't know it, and that's the biggest problem. And I think that as a part of people wearing these muzzles by themselves when they're out walking or in the car by themselves or whatever, it's also highlighted to me that I need to not let that get to me. And it's two things. It's non-compliance, but it's also being resilient in the fact that you have to be patient with these other people, because if you let that get to you, then I don't know about you guys, but I've just been feeling very kind of not super anxious, but a little bit strange since the new year started, and just wondering, like, when is this ever going to end? But we have to be the ones to do it. And I know that that there are benevolent forces fighting on our behalf, but we have to uphold our end of the bargain, which is the non-compliance part, which seems very simple in the scheme of things, but it's not for some
in
people.
Australia at the moment, they've just announced in the Northern Territory, in an unprecedented move, say that the Chief Minister, Michael Gunnar, has declared that from 1 p.m. today, unvaccinated Australians will have... Oh, sorry. People that don't have this will have really brutal sort of lockdown measures in place for 3 days, I think it is. And then when that finishes on Monday, then this pass system will begin in the Northern Territory. So that's another push by them forward. So again, we have to step up even more and really step up in our non-compliance, non-consent, and do everything we can to push back.
Yeah, I so agree. And it's interesting because what keeps coming to mind for me is the phrase, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. And I think never has that been more apt in my life than what it is now. And I've always been, and it's got me in a lot of trouble over the years from a very early age, a real advocate of walking your talk. And really, so many people say things and then don't live them out in their day-to-day life. And for me, that's just completely unacceptable. And I think at the moment, in terms of sort of stepping in and tapping into your inner warrior, we've all got so much more resilience than we know. And I've always thought quite hard about, you know, you don't have to hit rock bottom before you make changes in your life, because that's not my personality. But now I can see where that comes from. I can see that it's bigger than just us as individuals, and that at an individual level, we've all got our different tolerances, our different boundaries, the different external circumstances that we're being subjected to. However, you've got to look at the bigger picture and more than you. And if we truly believe and walk the talk that we are all connected in everything in the universe, animal, plant, you know, humans, that we are all connected, then we have to understand, like you were just saying, the tolerance for other people, David. And you know, it's so much bigger than we all imagined, isn't it? You know, we sort of, I suppose I've always been the type of person that really believes one person can change the world. And this last year and a half has really taught me more than anything, it's all about community, and together we are stronger.
And I think you've made a fantastic point there that triggers so much ideas. But when you have been through an incarnation and you've experienced a lot of things, you can really tap into so many resources through that experience. So, for example, you can go back to something that you found really, really challenging in your life, and remember the qualities that it took to be able to, you know, go through that experience, and just tapping into those qualities again, because those qualities were created by you for this time. So it's like you can utilize these great gifts that you have experienced through making those things that were really difficult perhaps for you in your life into gifts that you can tap into now. And I think that really is a beautiful way of looking at the challenges that we experience in life, that they're there for the reason. And this time now is like the perfect time to really utilize every resource that we have within us.
Yeah, I mean, Brice, I hear you talk. I mean, you are such an expert on yoga and the Yoga Sutras and everything. And this is really standing you in good stead now, isn't it?
I mean, well, I actually was just talking with Taylor Moon on a video we recorded about how gobsmacking it is that there are so many spiritual schools all over the world that are complying. And it's like they just lost all credibility, because you can't go into a yoga shala and be forced to do this. You can't, that goes against the principles of everything. And part of the practice of yoga itself, and at the root of it, is learning how to see the truth through the illusion. So if you're still falling for the illusion and you've been practicing yoga for 20 years, what the hell were you doing on your mat? And so what we're seeing too is like, it's almost like this great divide. And not a bad way, It's just, and that again goes back to the law, or the law of one, where it talks about the ascension, the harvesting, and people that aren't ready to be harvested, or souls that aren't ready to be harvested to ascend into fourth density positive. That's okay. It's that thing about that's okay. They're just not ready. So they're going to have to go to another planet to continue this third density journey, to continue learning. And I think too, you know, as kids, our parents used to always say, like, you know, if your friends were jumping off of a cliff, would you? You know, how many people now, grown ass adults, are you like, why are you following the herd? You know, like,
Yeah.
What? You're following them off the cliff, you know? And so we're starting to see these, and it's hard. It's really hard. I know for me, I mean, in Atlanta, nobody in Atlanta, I think, knows who I am or knows I have a platform, especially where I go to the grocery store. No one ever, but knowing that I have a platform means that I cannot put one of these on at all. Even if it's just going to be convenient for me in that moment, I have to be integral to what I'm saying on my channel. You know, it keeps me accountable to that. Now, where I am in the United States, we don't have any of these like laws for any of this. I live in a very conservative area, which is Atlanta's not too conservative, but the state itself is pretty. So I have nothing. My life is very easy compared to the three of you guys. Like, I have so much respect for people living in other countries right now where it's a lot more extreme. But it does force you to have to like consider every action you take, and are you representing your values? Are you representing what you claim to believe in? And what a great mirror in this and the opportunity that is for us, especially if we are ascending, to be able to check ourselves. And for me to go, I can't just run into the grocery store and quickly put one of these on because it's convenient for me. I have to walk in there with my head held high without one of these on, because that's what I want everybody else to do too. Does that make sense?
Integrity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrity. Yeah. Yeah. You're expressing your authentic self authentically to the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Without trying to fit in with everyone else, and just truly being a direct channel of what your soul wants to express.
Have you felt, David, that, you know, your experiences today have prepared you to really step into your authentic self?
Was that directed at me?
Yeah, sorry, you, David. Yeah.
No. So my past experiences, how have they helped? That's a good question. What I was about to say was something. It's about having these non-negotiables in your life, and I think that since I started the personal development journey, which is maybe 7 years ago, that's really prepared me a lot. I went through so much, so many belief shifts, so many paradigm shifts, and challenging my beliefs, and just living life a completely different way than I was used to before. So it prepared me really well for what was to come. And I did a video of this on my channel where I said that, when was it, 2017 was the worst year of my life, and I went through a spiritual awakening, and I had no idea what was happening, and everything was just, I likened it to a roller coaster ride where I went through this, started the ride out in the open during the day, and then I went through this house into like a building, and it was completely pitch black, and then it just dropped, and I had no idea where I was going. It was all over the place, and suddenly I could see this little pinhole of light, and things started to get a little bit better. And the way I got through a good portion of that was by giving my heart what it wanted, which was music at the time, which has always been music, but I just wasn't doing it for ages. And that helped me get a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but over time, things got really good. And ever since then, I've had the most amazing 4 years of my life since I started getting better, at that end of that period. And I think it's the same as what's happening now. We're going through the dark night of the soul as a collective, the whole planet. And because we didn't do the work, for people that didn't do the work prior to this, they're experiencing it now. And for people like us, I would imagine all of you have experienced something similar. It's not as challenging because we've done a good portion of the work. Not to say that it's not challenging at all. We still have to face, I still have to go to the not wear it when I go out and deal with people, and which is interesting because I've had like a lot more people pull me up, in public for not wearing it in the last couple of weeks than I ever had before. And it's also stepping into your power in that moment and just challenging it. And yesterday I was at the gym and I walked in, and you don't have to wear them when you're at the gym because you're exercising, right? But I walked in and this guy walked out as I was walking in, and he was working out with the trainer who was wearing his, and the trainer said something to me as I walked in, and I heard him say the M word, but I didn't think he was talking to me because he was just worked out with the dude. And then he walked to the door to go and what I thought was chasing that guy to ask him something. Then he came up to me and he said, "Oh, you have to put it on before you start your workout." I was like, "Hey, I'm just about to start." And he's like, "No, you have to wear it when you walk in." I was like, "Are you kidding me? No, it's a 10-meter walk." What am I? This is ridiculous. And he had one in his hand, and he was like, "Oh, you can have this one." And I just didn't even bother to lift my hand up. And he got really flustered and walked away. And I wasn't intending to be rude, but sometimes you have to be, I don't want to say rude, but you have to challenge the status quo in other ways other than just, pretending you don't listen to them, if you know what I mean. Like you have to, like I flat out told a guy to grow some balls like a few weeks ago because he pulled me up on it. And, I'm not going to say anything to anyone if they don't say anything to me. I'll just go about my business. But if some big dude, because I'm not a tall guy, I'm pretty small guy, but some big dude thinks he's going to intimidate me and tell me to put my thing on, then I'm gonna tell him what I think. So I just said, hey man, grow some balls. And I got really close to him because he was going down the escalator and I was like on the ground level. And I just got really close to him, looked him in the eye, and he started swearing at me and acting like a complete idiot. Everybody was looking at him and he would look like a fool because there was no one, he wasn't talking to anybody. He was just there yelling at me with his mask on.
And you co-created that experience so that you could learn how to.
Australian internet's not doing well tonight, is it?
No, they
It's
don't
been
want
really
us
bad
talking.
lately.
Is
Yeah,
really bad lately.
Talking.
to really stand in now. So I think it's really important to remember that the external comes to us because we are the co-creator and we draw it in so that we can learn what we need to learn.
Yeah, we're losing Medyhne. We sort of got most of that, but
do I repeat that?
No, don't worry, I think
can you hear me?
Yeah.
She's 100% right though. We do co-create everything in our life, but even this madness that we see, happening now and we're experiencing, we've done that because we were too apathetic and didn't do anything about it when we first heard about it, or not enough of us knew about it or didn't seek out the truth. So it's true.
Yeah.
Swap places now. I think it's so important to say, because I think, I've never thought of myself as a particularly rebellious person. But now looking back on it, you hit on it. It's these non-negotiable boundaries that you're just not going to do it. So I heard Charlie Ward say the other day about how he was taking Justin, his son, to a gymnastics competition, and they had to stay in a hotel, and the hotel were absolutely insistent they weren't coming in without this. And his wife sort of said, it's important not to stress Justin out. Can you just wear one to get in there? And he was like, well, can I just have an affair for 10 minutes then? And it's exactly that to me. So I've had so many conversations with family members, with friends, not so much members of public, because I've got that sort of don't mess with me face. But, where family members have said, well, why? It's not that big a deal. Can't you do one? And I'm like, to me, it's everything. To me, this is, I'm not joking, it's not letting the Jews into your house. It's not sheltering those people in need. It's not feeding the birds when there's snow outside and they're starving. All those examples are, at what stage do you turn a blind eye? And Brice, you've talked about this so many times, about how many Nazis were working at the camps while this is all going on. And, there's nothing to me more important than your core values. And once you've let those drop, then it's very, very slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope. And actually, for me personally, it's so much easier just to not give in at all, because you could, where do you draw the line? If you say, well, I'll behave like this in this situation and not in that, you're sending a message out to the universe that you're not clear on your values, you're being incongruent, and that's what you're going to get back.
100%.
That it's shocking. I know as an American, I know so many people whose grandparents immigrated here because of World War II. Heard so many stories from people whose grandparents would talk about experiencing that, and the fact that we're not even 100 years out, and it's literally shocking. It's like common sense is not so common. We know that now. It's like the whole gem thing where you literally walk like it's common sense, dude. Like it's not even. It's like, and the fact that people are so easy. It's so easy to be, the good German. And how did we learn nothing? I know none of us were alive for that, but there's still people in our lives that experience the ramifications from that. And it's the Nuremberg trial, the original ones, all that information is out there. That wasn't that long ago, historically. It's unbelievable. That's shocking.
It's really shocking how many people I see. I think, the desensitization that is on society has really primed us for this sort of behavior. So, I'm completely shocked. Obviously, everyone knows how passionate I am about animals, but I can't believe this argument. You know, this will get me into a lot of trouble, but I really don't care. You know, when people say, well, I love animals and I eat ethical meat because, you know, it's grass raised, it's had a happy life. And I'm like, well, fine, give me your children. They've had a really lovely, happy, free range organic life, your children. Now I'm going to get their whole class and line them up and send them in one by one to the slaughterhouse. But they've had a free range organic life, so it's fine. Now, I know that's a bit of an extreme example in some respects, but is it? I won't mention too much, but Brice did a really brilliant interview with a whistleblower that's on your Rumble account. And she was talking about the most horrific animal experiments that go on in the medical industry. But how many people don't look at where their makeup comes from, that don't look at where their shampoo comes from, that do things like this? What type of species thinks it's okay? We've all seen the Anthony Fauci pictures of the awful animal experiments, but how many people actually condone that? Because I'm sorry, I think in this day and age, everyone knows that this type of thing goes on. And with every purchasing decision that we're making, we're either making a conscious decision to support that behavior or not. So when we look at all of us, and of course I've made loads of mistakes in that mistakes. I mean, I can't believe I had a pair of Ugg boots, which I absolutely loved. I mean, and then when I found out the welfare standards of the Ugg boots, I was just beyond horrified, and I just slapped myself and thought, what was I thinking? So we all make mistakes, and we do learn through those mistakes, hopefully. But do you think the way that our society, the consumerism, the way we've been run is just so primed us to what's the word I'm looking for? Desensitize us all so much that these things become the norm?
100%.
Sure.
Yeah. I
Medyhne, you're muted.
I was talking to a dude yesterday who I signed this petition, and it was about the bear bile industry in Vietnam. And I know there's a few other countries that do it. But the guy called me yesterday and he said, we started talking about it. I said, what kind of education has been done for the people who are in that industry and who are perpetuating this cruel industry? What kind of education do you have in place for those people, you know, to kind of let them see that there's another way, perhaps an alternative, you know, a substitute for the drug or whatever it is they think they get from the thing, and not just that, but another way to earn money. And he goes, oh, it's a very touchy subject. And I said, yeah, no doubt it is. He goes, because a lot of people, it's a cultural thing. And I said, yeah, but at the core of that, it's a belief system. Where did this belief system start? And that's the same with everything. Like what you said, Catherine, we are desensitized, and we kind of, people are very strange. They think because something's been done for a certain period of time that it's okay, no matter what it is. And that can be said for everything. You know, It doesn't matter what it is. If it's been done for 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, whatever, people go, oh, okay, it's always been that way. And maybe even not even that long, you know. And you have to kind of wonder, like, where these beliefs are planted, you know, and you get to the core of the issue. That's where it is. And I think that in many ways, and that's why I've always said, like, yeah, we are headed for this new earth and everything, but to undo all the negative programming that we've all experienced for God knows how long, it's going to take generations, you know.
And right now, I think we're kind of purging. Like it's showing us the situation that we're in has kind of given us a chance to start. For those of us, obviously, who want to work on ourselves, is giving us a chance to consider these things. And especially in the Western world, I mean, all of us live in like modern societies where it's so easy to get everything we need. It's not a struggle for anything. I mean, how many bottles of lotion do I have laying around my house right now? Like, it's so easy. And but for us, that puts us in a situation where we don't pay attention to and it's making us have to kind of reconsider that. And we know, with the capitulation of companies, we know that we're going to see some of these companies fall, and to be able to have to then deal with that and relearn what our ancestors knew and how they lived, and find that pureness again to what we use and what we utilize. And So I think, I think you've opened up a really broader picture, Catherine, because it goes so much, the tentacles reach so much wider than just whether you're wearing one of these or not. You know, it goes deeper into everything that we have in our society. So we got a lot of
I
work
guess
ahead of us.
it boils down to, and I will say I've had some technical issues, so sorry if I've yeah, my internet cut out, and then my microphone muted. And all this stuff. So it's been a bit of a schmozzle, but anyway, but it's lovely to hear you talking anyway. So I was just going to say, you know, we've had everything at our fingertips that we can access, but you know, what do we actually really need, you know, to live a simple basic life? You know, that's a really strong spiritual precept to be able to just be happy with simple things, with the basic things. And I think that the more we need and the more we want, the less connected we are within, and the less spiritually and connected to the divine we are as well, because we're trying to access you know, joy and happiness through external things, which ultimately will never give us those qualities that we're trying to seek.
Yeah, it's so true, and it is such a deep thing, and it's just like, you know, we've got a lot of relearning to do, and that for me is really exciting, because when I look around, you know, I live in a very affluent area, but a lot of people are not happy. Yeah. And I've also been lucky enough to travel to some very poor areas, and it's a real cliche, but it was really true, and the people were a lot happier. Now, I'm not saying it's as black and white as that. Of course, there's 50 shades of grey in between. Won't get into that one, but it is a really important thing. I mean, you know, someone sent me an email today and it really hit home. I can't remember the lady's name, but it was like, why is everyone talking about America, Europe, Australasia? Why is no one talking about China, about most of Africa and things like this? And I thought it's a really good point. And I thought, you know, how many things have I bought over the last 5 years that are made in China? Probably loads, without giving it much due care and attention, because it was cheaper and it was easily accessible. And yet, look at, we're now complaining because we're moving into a world where we're being treated like the Chinese have been treated forever. And I was just, and it's so complex, isn't it? And I think what's really lovely is these questions, we can't ignore them anymore, can we?
No. It's interesting. There's a nail salon here close to where I live in Atlanta. And of course, Atlanta is a big city, 6 million people. So there's loads of nail salons. But the family that owns this salon, they're Vietnamese and they're refugees. And it turns out throughout this whole fiasco that they were big Mr. T supporters here in the United States, because they know what it's like to live in the opposite of freedom, to live. So there were huge Mr. T supporters. Now, again, Georgia is a very conservative state, but Atlanta is very liberal. So bless them for being very vocal in that situation. But as all this stuff has happened, and again, here in Georgia, these are not mandated, but in Atlanta, you still see a lot of the really annoying people pushing, you know, five of them on at one time. And their one nail salon now has become almost like a speakeasy, like from Prohibition, where everyone goes there now and has just a grand old time. But recognizing that and being able to support the people that, you know, have been through the fire of that and have come to another country for freedom, and to be able to continue to support them as your fellow countrymen, and not, you know. But my best friend, his parents, he lives in Canada, but his parents were refugees from Vietnam. And you're right, we do buy the cheap, easy stuff that, I mean, here in America, everything's like made, you turn it over, everything's made in China. But then, yeah, how are they living? Because they have been going through this for way longer than we have. And
I was
God bless them.
talking to some Eastern European people actually here, and they were saying they'd come from Romania and some others from the same area as well. And they were saying that the lifestyle now in Australia just really reminds them of those days of, you know, communism when they were there. And they said that it was actually better when they were there than when they were here in Australia now. So, you know, they've been able to really identify the patterns and everything that's happening because they've been through that experience, and they can see it really clearly. Whereas for the people that have lived here all their lives in Australia, they haven't had that experience, and so they don't know that they're not identifying the marks that are in you know, the gender that
They don't want us talking.
They don't want us talking. They're just, I have noticed that with the internet in Australia is
my internet not working?
bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's whenever I talk with Tamara, it's the same thing. There's always a little, they really don't want us talking to you guys. They wanted to keep it all separate.
We're just saying it keeps cutting out. Yeah, it's fascinating. I've got 3 Romanians in my house. One of them's out here with me now, 2 dogs and a cat. And I tell you what, their joy for life is absolute joy to behold. It really is. So yeah, so I mean, it's I love these discussions because it's so thought-provoking. And in the spiritual world, we talk about gratitude a lot. And it's one of those things where everyone talks about gratitude journal and you know, they talk about living your life in gratitude, but I can honestly say over the last year and a half, I've never been more consciously aware of how grateful I am for so many things in my life.
I'll tell you one thing, as an American, I mean, I grew up with parents that were very did a very good job of teaching my sister and me, constantly talking to us about what it meant to be an American, talking to us about the American Revolution. My parents did a really good job doing that. So I have to applaud them for that. But growing up in a country where we have the Second Amendment, you know, there's a lot of controversy around that. And of course, a lot of issues. But at this point, I am so grateful that we in America have these, because that's why we're not as bad as like Australia right now, is because they're kind of afraid of us. The government's kind of afraid of us because everybody's got one of these, you know, and we have a right. Yeah, or 10 mostly. Well, actually, it's funny. My friend Cindy, who has done videos with Catherine and me before. She lives in an area of Atlanta, a different county. There's a lot of counties. She's in the suburbs, and it is still in that county's little constitution that it is by law everyone has to have one. It's still written that by law and I'm seeing other people from other countries are now saying, God, I always thought you Americans were crazy for having these, but now I get it. I get it.
I thought it was, and that was my big awakening at the start of this. I've spoken about it.
Yeah.
I'd literally, most people in the UK, generalization, but most of us think it's absolute madness that you've all got these, because all we hear about is what we now know, probably a FF, the wavy flag things, events, but we didn't know that at all, and still a lot of people don't. And I just had the biggest aha moment 2 years ago, listening to an interview on London Real of just like, oh my God, I get it. And this is why you know, I have to laugh at myself, because I thought, well, I completely fell for that hook, line and sinker. Completely thought all Americans were nutters.
Yeah.
They'd be so stupid to let everyone have them. And now I'm just like, oh, bloody hell. I completely
They wouldn't have many, would they, in the UK? There wouldn't be many of those, would there? People having them.
We're not allowed them for general use, but we're still very much in touch with the countryside. There's a lot of controversy about that, about hunting and things like that. But so there's pockets of quite high level ownership, but not in the general public at all. We're not allowed them. I mean, I couldn't go out and get one unless I knew.
You have to apply for a license.
Yeah, you have to apply, license, very strict guidance, etc. You know, so yeah, I think it is very interesting. But you know,
the upper levels of society can use them for, you know, hunting and things. Maybe the lower the lower echelons are not able to access them.
Yeah, very much so.
And that is why our forefathers gave us that, was to be for this purpose. It was not for each other. It was to overthrow a system that was bad, so the people would always be in control. And that has been, I remember back, was it like the early 2000s, there was this whistleblower by the name of Swally, that was like her pseudonym. And she was the first person to really come out and start talking about what we now know is truth about this group of people. And she used to always say that America was the Wild West. She was American, but she said it's because of the Constitution that this group is having such a hard time getting America, like controlling it, because of the Constitution. And what have we seen for the past 20 years? What they've been really going after with Americans is that Second Amendment. Well, if you take away the Second Amendment, the door is open to take away all of them. But yeah, you're seeing it. They just have not been able to really get that. We've had presidents that but that's still, it's that root of that Constitution would not allow them to totally take control of a nation. And I remember Flynn saying, if America falls, the world falls. Yeah. And going back to what Swally was saying, that's kind of what she was saying as well. Like, because of this, they couldn't quite figure out a way. So what did they have to do? They had to start manipulating by those special events, movies on the news that, schools and stuff, that they would have to start manipulating to get more control. And now I know, during 2020, I think sales for these went through the roof here in the United States. Because all of a sudden people are like, oh shit, I gotta go get, that was encouraging, that most people could kind of see the writing on the wall. We're going to have to, and we keep thinking, how long is this going to keep going? How long is this going to keep going? I do know that here in the United States, we have in our Constitution, we have the right to form, and I have to be careful about what I say this, a group of people, it starts with an M-A, to then, if the government has gotten out of hand, to then form this group to then come in and remove. That makes sense. And I know that a while ago when Mr. B first took office, he was threatening to take these away, and an officer got on a recording and said, if he does that, who do you think he's going to send out to collect these? He's going to send the army out, the military out. The military is not going to do it. Instead, the military is going to train you on how to use these better and fight with you. And so they kind of made that known that can't happen. But what I keep thinking is this can't go on much longer, because I know there are so many Americans that are already starting to form groups. There will be a civil WAR if this keeps going on and on and on, because a lot of the Americans are getting really fed up and know that they have the right by law to do that if they need to, according to our Constitution. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to be very quoted by what I say.
It's in the spirit of America, I think. The anagram of the word America is the I am race. And the I am is claiming your sovereignty. So it's like the light or the birth point of this I am sovereignty emanating to the rest of the world.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Medyhne, because 1776, when the American Revolution started, a lot of the same Pluto, a lot of the planets were in the same alignment as they are right now.
Yep, exactly.
So that's interesting you say that. It was almost like that was the first domino, because America is a country of multiple cultures. So it's like the first domino of humanity basically giving the middle finger to the monarch, which is, as we know, is that bunch.
And we never know why.
It's an energy, it's a spirit.
Oh my goodness. This is better than any history lesson that I've ever attended.
Throw them in the bin.
Yeah, probably made up anyway.
Yes. Oh, completely. So we're near at the end of the hour. I think we need to carry this conversation on next week, guys, if you're up for it, because there's so much more we can talk about this. But okay, so we are where we are. What do we think? Let's go around the table and just have some parting advice for people that are watching, because when we're talking about you know, we started off the conversation with looking at tapping into our inner warriors, and that looks different for different people and everything. So Medyhne, let's start with you. What, for people listening who are sort of perhaps a little bit isolated where they are or struggling with things, what would be some words of wisdom for them to tap into their inner warrior?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me, because I've got the perfect sort of metaphor for what to do at the moment energetically. And it is the lesson of the eagle and the crow. So the only bird that dares to peck an eagle is a crow. And the crow sits on the eagle's back and bites its neck. And so the eagle does not respond or fight with the crow. It doesn't engage. It just allows that to happen. But what it does instead is it continues to rise in its journey up, 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 up. And then the crow can't sustain staying in those higher frequencies. It loses its ability to breathe. It can't oxygenate its body. So it just drops off the eagle. So it's a perfect metaphor for, you know, when we have these energies coming at us that are trying to attack us or control us, we don't retaliate in a sense, but what we do is we continue to raise our frequency and ascend in our energy. And so I think that's a really beautiful story. I think it might be a Native American Indian story, but it's true that the crow is the only bird that dares to try and attack the eagle, and that's what happens.
Wow, that's brilliant. What about you, David?
Yeah, no, I think raising your frequency is one of the best things that anybody could do. If everybody just, I mean, you know, I'd say this kind of maybe not flippantly, but if everybody just raised their frequency, we wouldn't be in this mess at all, ever, right? Because it sounds simple. I mean, it sounds so easy, and I guess it kind of is in some ways, but it also isn't very easy in some ways, because it sounds like this one thing that everybody can do, and people that don't understand frequency wouldn't really get it. They'd be like, well, what is it? First of all, what is it? What do I have to do? And second of all, why is that so powerful? And the reason it's so powerful is because when you raise your frequency, you're obviously stepping into the higher emotions, the higher of love, peace, and joy, but you're also letting go of all the other ones, all the fear, shame, and guilt. And fear is the thing that's keeping us here in the first place. So that would really be, you know, pretty much parroting what Medyhne said, is that's really the ticket out of it. It really is, because when you raise your frequency, you lose the fear, and you can step into your power at the same time.
Fantastic. And what about you, Brice?
False evidence appearing real. Fear.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They also say it's forget everything and run, but I like false evidence.
Face everything and rise.
Yes, face everything and rise. I know. I've been laughing this week about how, you know, we all are starseed. And it's like, why did I abort mission just to beat me up? I'm done. No, but I really want to emphasize, and I've been saying this a lot today. I know, trust me. I think all of us know that everybody watching is tired. We know that everyone's freaking out. Like, we get it. Just because we have YouTube platforms doesn't mean we're not right there with you feeling the same thing. But I really want to remind everybody watching this, perhaps you were born for such a time as this. You are a badass. You are strong. You have a light inside of you, and that's what they want. That is why they're trying to control you, is because they're afraid of you. Be that eagle. The crow's got nothing on you. You are a badass. And if you have to sit in the corner and have a little cry for 5 minutes, that's fine. I've done that a lot. It's fine. But just know that you are here for a reason. You were put here on this timeline. We know that the galactics, the cosmos, that all these souls wanted to come to Earth for this purpose, because this, what we're going through, is so huge, and you were picked. You were picked by the Creator to come here, to be here, to help push this planet into the new Earth. So just hold on to that. Don't let them bully you.
Absolutely. And my little parting words of advice would be, pick your boundaries and just make them completely non-negotiable. And, you know, personally, just spending some time on your own to sit there and think, you know, what is really important to me at the moment? What do I really, just pick one thing and then make it completely non-negotiable, and just watch how things change for you when you do that. I think it's really, really powerful. Thank you so much, all of you. I really, really love these conversations. I hope they're helpful to our listeners. Please do let us know in the comments. And everyone knows all of you on here, but obviously everyone's link, this will be on all our channels, and we'll put everyone's links below. And if you're up for it, let's reconvene in the next week or two, guys, and continue this conversation. I'd certainly love to.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Thanks, David, for making such an effort and getting up so early.
Oh, I think he's frozen now.
Australian internet, if we can put some fairy dust over.
Yes, totally. Gosh. Yeah, thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah. Take care.
I just missed all of that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Bye-bye. See you all soon. Take care.
Bye,
Yeah.
guys.